forward. And Alex, the floor is yours.
Sure. Thanks, Mike. So it's nice. I actually know two of the people actually on the call. So I've talked to them many, many times. Dave knows my background very well. So when I'm talking and you guys have questions, feel free to stop me. I talk about this stuff all the time. So happy to get interrupted and answer any kind of specific questions. We have a little bit of a smaller group here. So happy to dig in as appropriate. But so we'll talk about building a sales playbook and then how can you make the thing scale and repeat and do it all over again, over and over and over again. So before I get started, just a little bit about me. I've been in sales my entire life. Professionally, I guess I've been in sales for 15 plus years with really a focus on B2B sales. If you have B2C sales, you probably can find somebody better to talk to, but a lot of this will translate for you. I've built my own companies, founded them, kind of grown sales teams from scratch, as well as kind of been brought in to do some turnaround jobs and kind of get the companies moving in the right direction. So I believe I know my stuff, and I try to work on my craft each and every single day. So I do believe that and I call myself consistently a sales rep to date. So I'm always trying to get better. I'm always trying to learn, and that's really what this is all about. A couple of things that we'll go over. So I kind of broke it down into 4 sections. So what exactly is a playbook? I know that when I first started, I heard the term a lot, but I didn't actually know what that actually meant. And the importance of it. And then we'll talk about testing and doing some non-scalable tactics. We'll talk about sales process and CRMs. And then we'll get into how it all connects together with your metrics and identifying what works and what doesn't. So what exactly is a sales playbook? It's really just kind of a big library of tools. Think of like a football team, how they have a playbook. It's all the strategies, it's all the tactics, it's all the different documents and things that you need to do in order to be able to close more deals. And that's really what it's about, is putting together everything that you have that will allow you to close a deal, hopefully as quickly and as efficiently as possible. Now, it's really designed from the very beginning for newer reps. As you kind of get into the more experienced side, most of the experienced reps will know your playbook and they'll kind of have it memorized just from repetition and doing it so much. But really the importance of it is it's a proven and repeatable, actionable steps to be able to close deals. So if you follow the playbook, you should be successful. And when you have it all documented and laid out, it makes for onboarding really, really, really simple. There's no more onboarding yourself. There's no more go research a bunch of stuff on Google. There's no digging through your old emails or old files. You want to have it all in a kind of an organized and easy place to follow with directions and instructions on how to actually read the playbook. And so when you're going through it, you can quickly and easily hire reps. One of the big things that a lot of companies ask me about is how can I get my sales team to get wrapped up faster or reduce the ramp time, so the time that it takes for them to perform. Also, it reduces a tremendous amount of confusion across your entire company. So when everybody from product and sales and engineering and marketing and HR and ops, and everybody actually knows what the sales team's doing and how we do it and how we sell it and what we say and what documents we use, there's no more confusion. There's no more, well, I have a different document or I say it in a different way. The point is to optimize it as much as you possibly can so that when you share it with others, they follow that same path. That scales. When everybody does it the exact same way, that's how you get it to scale. And when everybody does it the same way, it's really easy to identify when something's not working and when something's working really, really, really well. And we can talk about some sales tools and things that'll help you identify and pinpoint some of those things. So where do you start? So you might have heard the term non-scalable tactics. So that's all the stuff that it's hard to automate, it's hard to repeat. This is really from trying to figure out what works. So a lot of you guys are in different parts and stages of your business. Some of you have customers, some of maybe you don't have customers, maybe you have lots and lots of customers. There's different ways to do it. But having done this for so many years, one of the number one places that I always start is, who is your ideal customer profile? Now, the key here is ideal, not your only customer profile, but your ideal customer profile. If you need cash and you're willing for, and someone's willing to pay you, that's a different question. But the point here is who is your ideal customer and how do you describe them? And you can have multiple profiles. Are you selling to the marketing team, the sales team, the engineering team? Are you selling to the VP, the CEO, a sales rep, an engineer? Who is it that's buying this? And how do you describe them? And then probably the second most important thing is, what are they struggling with? What are their pains? Nobody cares what you do. It's why you do it. Why do you want to solve these pains? So you want to learn from these customers. You want to reach out to them and talk to them and hear the words that they're using to describe their frustration. And you want to work it through a buying process, not a sales process. I have never in my entire life ever tried to sell a deal and the buyer says, you know what, Alex, thank you very much for putting me into your sales process. This was super helpful. I'm excited about this. It's just going to happen. So you want to think about the way that about the problems that they think about the way that they go through a specific process in order to buy. Think about any big purchase that you guys have made, right? It could be a house, it could be a car, it could be deciding what your next job is, whatever it is, deciding to start a business. You went through a process in order to finally go, all right, I'm ready to make this decision. And you know what? Pricing was not the first one. It was probably not the first thing that you actually about that says, I really need to know what the price is in order to make my decision. Now, it's a part of the decision, but you need to understand what your pain is. From there, what you want to do is you can map your buyer's process to your sales process, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But you want to understand, what does it take to actually get one customer? Don't try to get 10 customers or 50 customers, but what does it take to get one customer? And then what does it take to get 2 customers? Is it the exact same process, or do they throw a wrench in the mix and it changes it all up? And from there, you want to be able to identify, what are all the use cases? What are all the questions that you need to ask? What is the support that you need to provide? These are the things that you need to be able to look at from a non-scalable way, so that you're not creating a bunch of noise, making this big bang and everybody looks at you. Do it when nobody's looking, just a handful of customers willing to talk to you, so you can really figure it out. How do they use the product? Why do they use the product? What struggles do they have? How do they implement it into their day? So it's really, really important. It's all focused on learning. Non-scalable tactics are all about learning. So the key is if you were to scale and you make a ton of noise and you make a large PR campaign and you spend a bunch of money on ads, well, there's a really, really good chance that you're going to drive all this traffic to your website or all this traffic to your email or whatever it is. And you got to sell it, and you got to explain it, and you got to deliver the product, and you got to onboard the customers, and you got it to work correctly. Well, if you scale too quickly and all that stuff breaks, you lose first impression. You're going to put a bad taste and a bad reputation in everybody's mouths. And what happens? People get on social media, They talk bad about it. This thing's a piece of junk. It breaks all the time. They don't know what it's doing. So don't do that yet. Figure out your early adopting customers, the ones who are willing to work with some of the bugs without making a ton of noise. You want to figure out how can you get to one customer or two customers. And after you get to 10 and 20 and 30 and 50 and 100, then you can take a step back and go, all right, so what exactly is it that I'm doing that allows me to get to a final actual onboarded customer? Now you can focus on repeating it. Now you can focus on actually automating the things that you have already done. A lot of things are going to change in the beginning. So if you're going to try to automate or repeat a lot of that in some kind of technology way, you're going to waste a lot of time and a lot of energy because you're going to have to change all that stuff over and over and over again. Save yourself the heartache. Such a pain in the butt. I've done it. It really is a pain in the butt to change all this stuff after you put it into place. Learn what it takes to wow a customer. Learn what it takes to understand how they use the product. Your customers are really, really nice. They're going to tell you when it doesn't work right. What are the shortcomings of the product? From there, then you can figure out how to scale. So now what do? We've kind of gotten down to some of the basics. What we've talked about is non-scalable tactics. Well, what exactly does that mean and how do you even put it into place? So the key is you want to have a hypothesis of what you think is going to work. What's the pitch? What are the pains? What are the value statements? What are the questions that you think? What's the subject line do you think that's going to open your email? What's the cold call script that you think that's going to work the best? Have some hypotheses. Put all that stuff together. Then make another version. And it has to just be slightly different. Change just a couple of variables, maybe even just one variable. For a subject line or for an email, just change the subject line. The rest of the email stays exactly the same. And then track it. The key is you want to get out and you want to go talk to these customers, talk to prospects, talk to people who make up your ideal customer profile. Don't rely on paying a bunch of ads. Don't rely on surveys. Go actually speak to people. Hear the words that they have to say. Use the words that they say, not the industry words. All the acronyms that you talk about in your company that you know what you're talking about, your customers and your prospects have no idea what those words mean. But they're not going to interrupt you. People don't like to look stupid. They're just going to kind of nod along and go, and then you'll never hear from them again. So let me show you a couple examples. So for example, subject line testing. Make it really, really simple. So if I'm going to send an email to Mike, all I'm going to do is I'm saying the same exact thing. The body of the email is exactly the same. The first line, the second line, so on and so forth. And all I'm doing is I'm changing the subject line. And I'm testing to figure out what works to get them to open my email. That's all I'm caring about. That's all I'm trying to figure out. And the same thing goes for what I call the hook or the first sentence of your email. So a lot of times when you see an email, right, you pick up your phone, and what's the first thing that you see? You see who it's from, you see the subject line, and then you see like the first, I don't know, give or take 4, 8, maybe 10 words. It's really important to be able to test that because that's what's going to help people decide if they want to open your email or not. Right now, there's a lot of people who write the exact same thing in their first sentence. It goes something like this. Hi, Mike. I hope you're doing well. Who's wrote that before? I know I have. Everybody writes, hi, I hope you're doing well. It doesn't matter if you mean it, if you don't mean it. It doesn't matter. Nobody cares because it looks like every other email in the entire world. So I'm not going to open it. When you send an email to your friends, to your family, do you always start with, I hope you're doing well? Most of the time you just launch into it.
Oh, can I ask a question, Alex?
Sure.
So I actually find that now I'm always starting with that because of COVID. Like I almost feel if I don't say it, it looks like I'm just not sympathetic to everybody's current situation. And so nobody will read anything if I just launch into the business. Like,
Totally.
sensitive could I be?
Yeah, very. So there's something between genuine empathy and fake empathy. And how do you actually show fake empathy or genuine empathy? When you write, I hope you're doing well, because a million other people are saying the same thing, it doesn't matter if you mean it or not. It doesn't matter that it's genuine. Because everyone else is doing it, you're guilty by association.
Okay.
So I would encourage you to change it up. My
I
emails
tend to write, I hope you're doing well amid the corona chaos. Like a little humor, I still put it in there.
Could it be as simple as adding like a partner's name, like you and, or your new baby or something like that? Could it be a little bit more personalized to be?
Exactly. Yeah, change it up. So you can add, I hope you're doing well, blah, 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 into these COVID times. But it doesn't matter. I'm not seeing that part. Look on your email. Look on your phone right now. You can see the first 4, 5, 6, 7 words of the first sentence of the email. Who cares what says it after? You're going to look and go, great, I got another email from another sales rep. Click or delete. So when you look at something like this, change it up. And I would encourage you to make it personalized. I can have a whole 5-hour conversation around prospecting and emails and everything. But the point here is you want to be personalized. When you can be personalized, that's how you stand out. If I look at an email and the first sentence is, hi, I see that you wrote this in your last LinkedIn post, that's a little bit more personalized. Or another one, people love numbers. It makes the words break apart a little bit. So when I say 52%, that just catches people's eyes because it's not a traditional just like word, it's a number. So there's a little bit of a game that goes into it, but what the point of this is you want to have 2 different ones and track the open rates. So it looks something like this. So in this case, I have 3 different versions, right? And I just made up the numbers. But when you look at this, which one has the highest open rate? Well, version 3 has the highest open rate. But I don't really care how many people actually open my email. I care how many deals I have. And you know what helps me get deals? Qualified opportunities. You know what helps me get qualified opportunities? Actual meetings. You know what helps me get meetings? Replies. So in the case of if you're prospecting in an email scenario, what sticks out here? So one of the things is you might have a really, really great subject line, or you might have pair that with the first couple words of your first sentence. So maybe you combine these emails, the templates all together to craft like a super email template, one that both opens and converts with a reply. Because if you can see, it looks like version 3 is almost like a bait and switch. So very attractive subject line, but then when you get into the meat of it, it's BS. And nobody ever responds. But when you look at the other ones that have lower open rates and lower click-through rates, you actually get a better reply. So what you can do is you can combine your subject line and your first sentence of your version number 3 with the connector and your call to action and kind of the bottom of the email with version 1 and 2 to figure out exactly what does it take to get to your qualified opportunity. Now you're building not only a data-driven strategy, but you're building your playbook. Now you know what works and what doesn't work. So what can you test? You can test everything. The key is to not over-test, which is the other side of the equation. But the key is to track emails. So open rates, clicks, and replies. But there's one step further you can go. Positive email replies and negative email replies. When someone replies and says, take me off your list, that's not a good thing. Now you got to reply, so that's better than nothing. But there's a difference between positive and negative replies. Call scripts, test the opening line, test your voicemails, test all that kind of stuff. Test your discovery questions, test who your criteria decision-making committee is. What channel should you use? Is email better than phone, better than social? Pain points, which pains resonate the most with all these different ideal customer profiles? And so on and so forth. And always be testing different parts of your sales process. And again, it's always about learning. The goal is to learn what works and what doesn't, so you can assemble a playbook of your best practices. So understand, what are the pains being solved? Why do your customers actually buy? Don't guess. If you start with, I think they bought because of this, stop. Remove the word I think and be able to say confidently they bought because of this. And if you don't know, go ask them. People love to talk about themselves and their business. I'm sure that they're all happy to explain why they bought your product. Sales process is probably the third most important thing on my things as far as a repeatable sales playbook. If you don't know the order in which to go, you're going to struggle greatly. You want to be able to understand what are all the steps. And the biggest key is don't jump the steps. I repeat, do not jump the steps. When you get on a call and it's a discovery call for the first time and the prospect asks you about your pricing, there's a difference between giving them a proposal or giving them a specific number and giving them a range to see if it's even remotely involved with what they're trying to accomplish. So for example, if you're trying to buy a car and your budget is $20,000 and I'm selling Ferraris, you're probably not a qualified opportunity. But if I'm selling, I'm making this up, Kias, then I want to figure out, all right, well, what do you want? You want a car? You want a 2-door car, a 4-door car? You want a truck? How do I know what you want? So don't jump the steps directly to pricing because you don't know what their pains are. You don't know what they're trying to accomplish. You don't know what the impact that your solution can make on their business until you ask more questions. So use a CRM so that you don't jump through all the different random hoops and track everything. If you don't have a CRM, the first thing I'd like you to do when you get off this call is go get a CRM. There's a lot of them are free. This is an example of HubSpot. It's a free CRM. It's a nice visual diagram. You see all your deals, you see the price. Super, super simple. You can track all your activity. You can track all the info on the contacts. You can track if it's a call, if it's an email, whatever. So you can just store all your information in a very simple and organized way. And then at the end of the day, you can take a step back and look at all the data and you can see what's working and what's not. But put your sales process into a CRM. It makes for a very nice visual, makes it very, very easy to be able to understand what to use, what's working. So we're doing all that. We're making our way. right? We're starting to track stuff. We're starting to test stuff. We're looking at some numbers. So what is it that we actually want to look at? So I break it up into three things: volume, conversion, and performance. And I look at it in that way. I don't look at it vice versa. I don't start with performance, which is typically where everybody starts. Revenue, number of deals, types of deals, that kind of stuff, that's all great. But what do you actually have control over? You don't have control over if the customer's going to buy right now. You do have control over how many meetings you set. You do have control over the number of emails and calls and social touches, but you want to focus on what you can control. Now, if you'll notice, meetings booked, qualified ops, demos, proposals, that's all part of the sales process, right? Higher the chance you have to hit the number that you want to try to get to. But then you want to look at the conversion rate. What is the percentage of prospects that move from stage to stage? And then you can look at all the performance. And you look at all of the numbers, and then you have complete control so that you can build your sales playbook. So then you can identify what works and what doesn't work. So if, let's say that this is your process, your sales process. You have 100% of leads. And of that, 56% convert to meetings, 17% to qualified ops, and so on and so forth down the process, right? You got this in your CRM. The sales process documented. You've already been starting to test some different things, so you figured some things out. And now I'm looking at testing what is working in my sales process. Well, what sticks out? Well, the fact that you set 56% of these meetings, that's pretty good. But only 17% of them actually convert to qualified opportunities. That leads me to believe that you're probably targeting the wrong people, or you're saying the wrong thing, or you have no idea who your ideal customer profile is, and you're getting lucky on a couple of these. So this is what's saying, now I know where I should focus. Now I know where in my playbook I need to spend the most amount of time to improve. But you know where I don't need to spend time? Demos. You're converting of the qualified opportunities, you're converting 73% to the demo stage. That's pretty high. So that's what you want to be able to understand, is what works and what doesn't work. My mouse just died. So when you look at a process, you just want to repeat it, track it, measure it, and then you can optimize it. And you go from the top of the funnel all the way to the bottom of the funnel. And you know what? And you turn around and you start all over again. And you just do it over and over and over again. A sales playbook is a living document. It's not like a business plan where you do it one time and then you're done with it and you'll never look at it again. Even though business plans should be updated all the time, but you get my point.
Hey, Alex?
Yeah.
Are there any useful benchmarks for the percentages where you should be for each of these kind of stages?
So the easy answer is yes and no, but it really pertains to your type of business. Because if I'm selling B2B enterprise software in the financial industry sector, a B2B SaaS transactions SMB product is going to have completely different metrics. So what I would encourage you to do is look at industry in your industry based on what's common, and you can see what is most likely.
And how do we find that?
There's a bunch of different ways that you can do it. There's Topo, which is a sales agency. You can look at, just high-level Sales Loft, Outreach. Some of them post a bunch of different things about different industries. What I would do is look at a company called CB Insights. They have a ton of different information. And you probably are going to have to kind of put all the data together to try to figure out what works for you specifically. If you find a place that specifically has it, let me know. That'd be nice.
Yeah, but with qualified leads, clearly 17% is too low. So what would you say is a kind of a healthy range for that? Where you'd say, hey,
So it doesn't mean that it's necessarily low. What I'm focused on is how can I improve that?
Okay.
Of all the numbers that I had at my disposal, that was the lowest one, right? So if I had to, you can only work on so many things at one point in time. Where are you going to spend your time improving? Well, that's where I'm going to spend my time improving. Now, can I get it to 75%? Maybe, maybe not. Can I get it to 20%? Maybe. The goal is to figure out what's actually possible.
And I guess if in this case, if you're to reduce the percentage of meetings booked, your qualified ops could go up based on that. If you were to, would you agree with that?
Potentially. So the point is when you look at this, it's not that you're only converting 17%. What it dictates to me is you're actually either A, targeting the wrong people, meaning that when you set a meeting and you talk to them, they're not your right client. So that could jump. Or you're having a conversation with someone and you're just botching the whole thing. And so you're doing a really bad job on the call. Another version could be, what happens if nobody actually wants your product? You're setting the meeting, you're having a good conversation, they just don't really care. So the point that I'm trying to make is there's a lot of different reasons, and every single business has a slightly different answer to it because it all is about you, what you've done. I could take your biggest competitor and I bet that they have a different problem. They have a different funnel. They have a different conversion rate.
Okay.
They're doing things differently. I'm happy to talk a little bit more about it. Just shoot me an email. We can dig into it if you'd like. So the last slide is now you can make your repeatable sales playbook because you know your ideal customer profiles, you know your process, you know your qualification or criteria, you know everything. You're building all of this stuff as you go. So you're building non-scalable tactics. You're uncovering it, emails that work, calls that work, questions that work, things that don't work. My dad always says, it's not always about what you know, it's what you don't know. That's always helpful too. So go after what are the things that you need to focus on and push the other things that you don't need to focus on. This will allow you to prioritize where you're supposed to focus, what you need to focus on, and pinpoint from an exact point of view what you need to be able to be successful. That's how you build a repeatable sales playbook in 39 minutes.
That was awesome. Thank you, Alex. What kind of questions do we have for Alex? Feel free to either put in the chat or unmute yourself, either one.
I'll go with another one.
Sure.
Are there any examples of playbooks that are out there that can be referred to as a starting point?
Probably. I would imagine all the good ones, like mine, I don't really publish it. Like I don't have like a book that I'm going to share with you. That's oftentimes any good sales leader, like they'll give you tips and tricks and pieces of it, but what is the point of me publishing my entire playbook? So I think that it's, one, it's about what works for you. And two, it's about not necessarily sharing because that's your core asset, right? Or at least one of your core assets to be able to help your company be as successful as possible. So I would imagine that most of the stuff that's out there is probably fairly general based.
Okay. I mean, I would hope that there'd be some sort of veteran kind of sales guy who used something from the old thing just to, get started because my plan is to give this to some of my colleagues so they can start filling in the blanks. And then when you say, hey, let's go through these questions, and they start with nothing, then it kind of makes it a bit more overwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, probably one of your best bets is either like Topo, which is a big sales world, or Sales Hacker, which is done by Outreach or bought by Outreach. They have a lot of good stuff. I don't know that they're going to have like an ebook on download, this sales playbook, and you'll be able to have the framework. But this is kind of the framework. I mean, these are the thing is it's, I can give you what things need to be in the playbook, but your customers are much different than my customers. And how you describe them and how you target them and how you talk to them and what you say and what you need to say to convert and what their pains are and what words there are, what your website should look like, how you convert your website, what content you write, and so on and so forth. Like there has to be some customization to it. So if you're going to find anything, you're going to find a framework that looks something like this.
Yeah.
Alex, so thank you for this session. Obviously, this is super needed to build this playbook for each of our startups. And obviously, in startup world, we're always going to be testing and iterating. My question relates to when to do those testing and iterating, and how frequently. Obviously, a living, breathing document, but if I'm making, say, changes to, let's use emails as an example. We mentioned, changing the subject line, changing that first hook line. How many tests am I measuring against the hypothesis before I end up making that change?
So I built a company for 5 years, and I tested every single week for 5 years. So I don't think that there's ever a reason to stop the testing. You go until you can get to 100% conversion is the way that I look at it. So you're going to have your tried and true that these are really the nice ones and this one works pretty well. But if you get to it and over the course of, say, 3 months, you're testing, you have your rock solid email, right? It converts at a high rate, has good open rates, good click-through rates, good reply rates, positive reply rates, and so on and so forth. And you're battle testing different ideas against that one, and nothing can beat it. What I would say is it's not to say that you don't want to test anymore. I would say you just pick something else to focus on testing. You want to constantly be optimizing your playbook all the time. Has anybody ever read the book Predictable Revenue by Aaron Ross? Or has anybody ever heard of it? Oh, I think that's the first for me. So Aaron Ross, he was a Salesforce guy for many, many, many years, and he built a playbook and wrote a book called The Predictable Revenue, or I think it's just called Predictable Revenue. And he has a whole company based around this for coaching and consulting. Super, super smart dude. And in his book, one of the first things that he says is in an email, he would write to someone, can you point me in the right direction of the person who makes a decision around Salesforce or CRMs or that type of thing? And he said it in a very nice and simple way. And he tested what that sentence really looked like and what that question should look like. But then he wrote a book about it, and he sold like 100 million copies. Do you have any idea how many people say that exact same question at the beginning of their emails every single day? Billions of people use that exact thing. So you know what doesn't work anymore? That doesn't work anymore because everybody's using it. And so the point of it is that works really, really well. I used to use it. I think he's a great speaker. He knows his stuff inside and out. Does it still work? Of course. Does it still work to the same conversion rate that it used to? Absolutely not. So while you found that it worked 3 years ago or 4 years ago, today it doesn't have the same conversion rate, and you'll see the trend analysis in your emails that the open rate or the reply rate starts to drop. Now you got to test something else. That's when the testing never ends. You just change it. It's always trying to get better. And as soon as you stop and you get complacent, you're probably going to have someone leapfrog in market share and sales performance, or colleagues going to do better, something like that.
Now, do you have, to continue that question, do you have a certain population size that I've sent 100 of these emails with the first name in the subject line. That's my test hypothesis B, or the test B to go against the hypothesis. Versus one email sent, you try at least a certain population size.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like sample size stuff, right? Anything over like 35 to 50 is usually pretty good. Like if I do a lead list of 100, I'll just break it in half and test the subject lines or test the hooks, something like that. Do you need to do 1,000? No. I mean, it depends how big your company is. In the small days, I mean, when you send 20, you do 10 on one and 10 on the other one, take a look. Is there any noticeable difference? If they both have within a few percentage points of everything, just keep going. Maybe there is no difference. The point is you're trying to get the highest open rates possible.
Have you ever reverted back to an old hypothesis test?
Absolutely, all the time.
Where are you?
So one of the reason that I would do that is if you are creating a new market or new category, new product, a new way to solve the problem, the way that you describe it in the early days might not work. That same way might be a lot better 2 years from now. So save some of that. Look back on it. And then you can go back, and now all of a sudden your market is more educated. People understand. You have more customers. You have referral marketing. You have word of mouth. You have reviews. You have people. There's a little buzz going on. Try something else.
Where do you store all of these tests? Do you just are able to see it in your CRM particularly, or do you have like a Word doc where you say, test number 105 for email subject lines, or like where do you keep all these?
Yeah, so I do it in a couple places, and it depends on the stage of your company and your budget. So from the beginning, you can just use like Excel or Google Sheets, and you just use the columns. The second place I would use is your CRM. And there's all kinds of CRMs that are able to spit this out for you. Like HubSpot can do it for you. Pipedrive is another good one that's pretty inexpensive. And then once you get into it, I would say look at different types of sales automation software. So one of my favorites is a company called Yesware. It's based out of Boston. A good friend of mine built that company. And it connects right into your Gmail. It's like a Gmail extension plugin. It's like $20 or $30 a month per person, so you don't have to have some massive contract. And it'll do the different types of tests for you. You can automate campaigns. You can do calls. You can do emails. You can do social touches. I think you can even like automate connecting on LinkedIn and engaging on LinkedIn, all from the same place. And it'll have the A/B test for you. And it syncs directly to the CRM. So it's all in the same place. And when you get a little bit bigger, a buddy of mine, when I went through Techstars with my company, a friend of mine, Kyle Porter, built a company called Sales Loft. You might have heard of that company. It's a little bit kind of advanced or bigger type company from a kind of a sales engagement or prospecting pipeline data-driven company, and you can do all kinds of different tracking in that. And it'll literally, you build say a 5-step sequence, you build another 5-step sequence, and you compare them against each other. It'll spit out the data for you and says, use number 2. So a lot of the answer will depend on the stage of your company and how big your budget is and how much you want to spend.
When you are evaluating some of these kind of poor indicator numbers, are you sending surveys or having private one-on-one conversations with customers saying, hey, just curious why you didn't convert to this next level, whatever those levels are? wherever they're at. Are you asking them in a certain particular manner that what part did they not like, or what would they like? How are you making some of these changes?
Yeah, so take the process piece out of it. Like, they don't care what the stages of your process are. I would avoid saying words like, "How come you didn't convert?" But I would understand their pains, and the main reasons that you can figure things out is when you ask them some open-ended questions around what they're trying to accomplish and why they're trying to accomplish it. So I am a huge believer in speaking to both customers and what I would call close lost customers, or close lost opportunities for the people who didn't buy. Why didn't they buy? And there's different reasons for the stages, right? So did they not buy because it was pricing was too high? But another one, I have a client fail to articulate the value. So there's really three main reasons why salespeople kind of struggle or fail. One, run out of leads, which is like kind of a big one. Two, qualified opportunities. So you don't actually understand what is the difference between a lead and an opportunity. Where's the break point? What is a qualified opportunity? Why are you more excited for one versus something else? And then the third one is this failure to articulate the value. So someone says, well, I got this pain, and you say something that is of zero relevance to them because you don't understand. So I would go and I would have actual well, I guess I would have video conversations with people these days, but I would have conversations. I'm not a huge survey person. When I think of surveys, I think of laziness, because most people, me included, I hate surveys. Unless you make it so I can click, 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 I'm probably not going to do it. So, but I'll take 10 minutes and I'll talk to you and I'll explain what I didn't like. And if you're early stage, you're talking to early adopters. You're talking to people who want to help you. I test so much software. I see so many new things and they break and I click buttons and it doesn't ever work. But I know that, and I'm interested in trying to help them. And so that's what I want to be able to provide, that feedback. You'd be surprised how many people just go, all right, I guess you don't want to buy. See you later. But they're not trying to improve. But the key is you got to understand who your customer is. Because otherwise you're going to spin your wheels and you're going to have conversations with people who would stop wasting your time. They weren't going to buy anyways.
Any other questions for Alex? Well, awesome. I'm going to hit stop on the